Well, we always begin everything at the Center for Spiritual Living with a spiritual mind treatment. And I'm just wondering on this wonderful, soon-to-be winter night, do we have some brave volunteers to come up? Come on up, Kristen. And Rick and Dan. Oh, yeah. Yay.
Start here.
What step do you want? 1, Kristen, you 3. Come here, so we need a step 2. And Dan, are you step 5? And step 4, we need an identification and a gratitude. So Amy is gratitude, and who is going to be identifying your true nature as divine? This is better than any amount of therapy you'll ever get. Step 2, honest to God, it goes right there. I am perfect, whole, and complete. All that God is, I am. I am a being of light, a being of love. And if you want to extrapolate on that, you have never, ever, ever done anything wrong. And there is nothing to ever punish yourself for. So who wants to step into that step 2? Yay, Breezy! Okay, so the question to the class is, what 3 things, just 3, do you want this spiritual mind treatment that's being done for you to include? Health, happiness, and what? Love. Health, happiness, and love. So Kristen, who is doing step 3, is going to write that down. Smart move, because sometimes you just go so far out in this treatment that you don't remember what you are treating for. So it's okay to write it down. It's okay to take notes. You good? Health, happiness, and love. So Rick, are you clear? You're going to start off with step 1. And what is step 1? Recognition of what? That whatever God is all that there is. And what is step 2? Identification. And what is identification? I am that God is. And step 3 is?
Affirmation.
Affirmation. And what is affirmation?
So it is for everyone.
Health, happiness, and love. That we, it's a group treatment, we all are that right now. And Amy, what is step 4?
Gratitude.
Gratitude. And what is gratitude? I'm grateful. And what is step 5?
Release.
Release. And what is release?
Let it go.
Into the law. I just wanted to give everybody a brief review and make sure you all knew what you were doing.
It's I, we.
I, we, I. That's the way you do a treatment for more than yourself. So you can take a deep breath if you want. And whenever you're finished, let the person next to you know that you're done.
I know and affirm that spirit, all loving action is right here, right now, everywhere, every time.
I know that I am healthy, happy, and full of love. And the divine sees that in anything and everything I do.
So in that knowing, I know that that everybody here in this class tonight, everybody here at Center for Spiritual Living is full of divine health. Our bodies are perfect, whole, and complete, and they work in perfect alignment, and everything is flowing in our bodies. I know that we have total happiness in every aspect of our lives. We wake up excited for our days, and we move through our lives with this underlying happiness and peace. And I know that we are full of love. We are love, so we are full of love. We are surrounded by love. We see love. We feel love. We move through love every day in our lives together.
And I am so grateful for this happiness that permeates our hearts, and that we know that the love that's within us, within me, within all of us. And I know within that love that there is all wellness. And I'm grateful.
I release this into the one law, and with that, can I get a? And
so it is. Well done, everyone.
Yeah.
Very proud of you. Spiritual mind treatment is what we do. You can come to this class and you can learn all about the subjective and hidden beliefs, but unless you do something, it will not serve you. And there are times when people come to see me, and they've been coming to this center for years, and I ask them, what is your spiritual practice? And they go, I don't have one. Well, how often do you do spiritual mind treatment? I don't. Well, let me share with you that that is the reason that your life is sucking. Because you can't just have an intellectual understanding without bringing it into form. And it's pretty simple. It's 5 steps. You move into a state where you set law in motion. And then sure enough, stuff happens. And you don't even have to be all in a spiritual holy place. People say, well, I wasn't in the space to treat. No. That's when you need to treat. You need to treat when you're not in the space to treat so that you get in that space. But sometimes people have this idea that they're not going to practice spirituality until they're more spiritual. And it begs the question, well, when are you ever going to be more spiritual if you don't practice some form of spirituality so that then you can experience yourself as more spiritual? So I would recommend to you that you do spiritual mind treatment. There are, the December issue of Creative Thought magazine is on the bookstore counter. Or do we still have some, do you know?
Yeah.
I think that is the last edition after 60 years. It is the last one. So if you want that last copy of the December issue of Science of Creative Thought magazine, pick it up tonight. We forgot to announce it Sunday, and Creative Thought magazine is closed down. It will be no more. One of the cool things that is happening is that they are taking 60 years worth of Creative Thought magazine and digitalizing it so that you can, for free, go to Spirit Jane. Thank you.
Sorry.
When you come in late, come in stealth, okay? So that you can go to Spiritual Living Archives and for free read all of the treatments for 60 years from Creative Thought magazine. But if you want a hard copy of the last one to hold in your hand, tonight is the night to get it. And if you have not been to Spiritual Living Archives, they are amazing. They've got a gazillion books that you can download for free if they're in public domain, or you can read them online, like if you've gone to a library, if they still have copyright laws attached to them. They have some recordings of Ernest Holmes, but we have the largest collection of Ernest Holmes recordings of anybody in the world. And how many people were here yesterday? Let me just fill you in a little bit on this story. I got an email from the group in Kenya that says, wow, we found your website, we want to use your stuff for this group in Kenya, which happens to be the very first accredited Science of Mind classes in all of Africa are being taught there. And they found the recordings of Ernest Holmes radio shows on our website, and they said that it's easy for them to understand the English as presented by Ernest Holmes because of his elocution. You know, he went to elocution school, and so he has great affect in his speaking of spiritual mind truth. You know, that kind of thing. And they said it's really easy for the people in Kenya to get what he's saying and how wonderful it is to hear it straight from the horse's mouth, to hear Ernest Holmes speaking Science of Mind. Well, it was about 6 months or a year ago that I was asked to take all of those off of our website because we did not have legal right to have them on our website. And I said, well, I'm confused because the tapes were given to me personally by Bill and Lisa Tolliver, who bought them, paid cash money for them, gave them to me, and I digitalized them and put them on our website, and I give them away for free. So they were paid for, they are being distributed, but they are not having any cash come from them. And exactly where is the copyright law there? And so there was tension because they threatened to sue. Well, we'll sue you to take them down. And I said, oh, just go ahead and sue me. Just go ahead and sue me for giving away Ernest Holmes recordings. Come on, I'll draw the line. You step over there. You file a lawsuit against me for that. So nothing came of it. But I found it fascinating that then someone at Home Office recommended our website to the group in Kenya, and they found the recordings of Ernest Holmes, which they said are the best thing that they've found on the website so far. They haven't found me in this class yet, but right now it's Ernest Holmes. And so I just found out that that was interesting. If our purpose is to spread the teachings of science of mind, then where in the world do copyright laws come into it when it's for Ernest Holmes, who had no children, who owns his copyrights? He didn't pass them off to anybody. And the backstory to that was that there was a group who wanted to take all of those radio shows and market them and sell them. And I was really screwing up their plan because I was giving them away for free.
Yay.
Long live giving them away for free, because the people in Kenya wouldn't have ever bought them. They would never have bought them, and they would never have gotten them. So it's getting to be about every week that we get some kind of a comment from someone in the world that our website is changing lives. We had a group in Sydney years ago that would listen to our talk, because we didn't have the video then. They would listen to our talk, they would gather in somebody's living room, listen to our talk, and that was their Sunday's morning experience, and they grew into a full-fledged center because of it. And I remember we used to get these envelopes from Sydney with Australian money in it that we could do nothing with because we were in Asheville, North Carolina. I'd save it all up till we went to a big city airport, and then I'd look for one of those, money-changing places and try to cash them out. So, Spiritual Living Archives, Creative Thought Magazine, last one back there, and check out spirituallivingarchives.com, I guess it is. It's a dot something. And just, if you want to, start exploring some of the amazing early writers of New Thought and what's available. It's a treasure trove of possibility and information and all of that. And, check out our website if you haven't already. We have a number of books on our website for free download, and some great readings of Barbara Waterhouse reading Wallace Wattles' The Science of Getting Rich and The Science of Being Great. And even now, I'll listen to some of those and go, God, that's really good. I stood in the back of the sound booth and I pictured the room full, and I read it, and I had it in big print so I could see it, and did that for a number of weeks until it was done, and that was a lot of fun. So check it out. This is the second to the last night of our class, and just to give you a little heads up, I have decided on what I'm doing in the winter. Monday night we're going to do a class on Ernest's first two books, Creative Mind and Success. And those are very simple, very clear ways of looking at science of mind, and gives me a lot of flexibility to play with you during that process. On Tuesday morning, I'm going to do something that I've never done before, and that is teach one of the very, very early New Thought writers, teachers, a woman named, Ritz, Annie Militz Ritz. Annie Militz Ritz. And I'm going to use this as a bridge for anyone who has a desire to learn more about the connection between the Bible, the breath, and science of mind. And she has a book called Primary Lessons, Deeper Breath. This is the name of the book. The book is Primary Lessons in Christian Living and Healing as taught by our Lord Jesus Christ. Now keep in mind, this is at the end of the 1800s, and that's the way people thought. So I'm just calling it Primary Lessons in Healing. The book is on our website as a free download if you want to check it out. But if you have a connection with the Bible, and if you want to experience some of the bridges of what came from that, forget about all of the dogma and all of the stuff that says you're bad, you're wrong. There are some amazing gems in that scripture that have been taken and correlated to some basic tenets in mental science. And so we're going to explore that on Tuesday mornings from 10 to 12. And I know that during the winter, there are a lot of people who don't want to come to a Monday night class, but they're very happy to go out in the middle of the day or in the morning, late morning, so that they're out while the sun's shining and the snow has melted. Instead of going out into the dark of night with the weather people saying there's going to be snow, a lot of people will just not do that. So it's going to be twofold, and don't worry about it being too biblical, because it isn't. I've gone all through the book, and I love the old-timey phraseology. I love it, whether it's Mary Baker Eddy or Emma Curtis Hopkins or Emily Cady or the Florence Scovel Shinn, that old time of absolute statements of truth. And there's a lot of denials in there. Disease is neither person, place, nor thing, so it has no hold on me. I love the confidence with which these women, back when women didn't even have a vote, were out teaching and writing and proclaiming truth principles. So if you want to share that with me, that's what I'm going to do in the winter, just so you know.
What time is that class on Tuesdays going to be?
Pardon me?
Do you know what time the class is?
10 to 12.
Okay.
10 to 12. Yes, Kathy?
Are you gonna record that class?
Yes, for that matter, recording it is one big reason that I'm doing it, so that we have that available to people, because I get people who say, I'm not one of those people who hates Jesus. I'm not freaked out about that, and I feel heartstrings tugging at me. And I would like to know how to bridge that science of mind to biblical scripture. How do I do that? So I'm going to offer an opportunity for us to do that and to do it together where we can talk about it and have some fun with it. In our Saturday morning practitioner 2 class, we have 8 gonna be practitioners who want to practice. And so what we are working on right now is relationships. And periodically during the week, during the year, they will offer themselves up for practice sessions to other people. So I'm going to give you some times and see if you would like to come to the Practitioner 2 class this Saturday and receive a treatment from a Practitioner 2 student on something about relationships. One thing to understand is that there will be other Practitioner 2 students watching. So it's not going to be just one-on-one. It's going to be one-on-one, and then there are going to be a few other people in the room watching, and then we'll have someone else come in. So if you are interested, we have 2 groups going at once. And the first one is at 10:15. This is group A, group B. The next one is at 10:35, 10:55, 11:10, and 11:30. So if you would like to receive a treatment on something about relationships, you can give me your name now. What time?
11:30.
11:30, Breezy. Kristen.
10:55.
What day is this again?
This Saturday, Patty and Elaine.
11:10 and 11:10.
Wilma.
Can I do 11:30 on B?
Margot.
10:55.
Victoria. 10:15.
Queenie.
Sarah?
10:35.
Okay, so we have 10:15 and 10:35. Jane?
10:35. That's this Saturday, right?
Yes, this Saturday. Who wants the 10:15? Nina. Thank you. In a few weeks, we'll be doing the same thing for prosperity. And then a few weeks after that, we'll be doing the same thing for health. Go upstairs and someone will meet you. Yes, yes, yes.
At your house?
No, here. Oh, crack two, yeah. Wonderful, okay.
That was easy, huh?
So what I want to talk about tonight in our continuing to look at different ways we can shift our consciousness is the idea of changing our story. And again, I'm kind of bringing this all together into a final point. So I'm looking at all of the things that we've looked at and what is a big idea that we have not talked about yet. We talked about a whole bunch of things over the last 2 weeks. And so tonight I want to talk about shifting our story, changing our story. Because nothing is real unless you make it real. It only means what you make it mean. And sometimes I think when we look back on our past, we're not even sure what happened, but we made this big story out of it. Sometimes I think, well, maybe we were going down the aisle, what would have been back there, Walmart was not, at Grand Way, or one of those, Five and Dime store, and we wanted something. It was shiny and sparkly, or it smelled like sugar, and we wanted it, and whoever was with us said no, and we pitched a fit because we knew that if we screamed loud enough and kicked hard enough, that sometimes we get what we want. And so we went for it. And instead of getting what we want, maybe we got smacked and put out in the car. At that time, they just lock you in there and leave you there, and leave it open and say, fine, go run away. And then we go into our memory and start remembering, maybe we're in therapy or we're, revisiting our childhood, and we start remembering this awful situation where we just felt so upset and we were crying and asking for help, and instead we got whacked and taken outside and thrown in the car. So there are those kinds of scenarios that maybe are remembered askewed. And then there are these whole things that we really think happened that never happened. When they started doing experiments on people's brain, the brain, 30, 40 years ago, that was the cutting edge frontier, and they would open up people's brains, open up people's skulls, and stick electrodes in their brain to try to figure out what part was speech and what part was language and what part was memory, and they would stimulate something. And the person being wide awake would say, oh, I'm 4 years old and I'm at a birthday party, and there's my brother Billy, and there's his friend Bobby, and mom and dad are there, and on and on and on. And then when those things were checked for factual accuracy, they didn't move into the neighborhood where Billy's friend Bobby lived until the person was 12, and the parent had already died by the 4th birthday, or things that made the memories absolutely impossible. But in that person's mind at that moment, they were there. They were living it. It was so real, nobody could have told them that that didn't happen. And one of the problems with a lot of the self-help and therapy that lead into areas of abuse, whether it's sexual abuse, physical abuse, any kind of abuse, not to discount anyone who experienced that, but there are possibilities for people to fabricate those memories and for them to believe that they are absolutely real. When you couple that with a therapist's desire, conscious or subconscious, to have a continuing client-patient relationship, then there can be all kinds of cues and support to where someone believes that something happened that never happened. So I say this just to call into question all of your memories about anything. You don't know if it's true or not. You don't know if it actually happened or not. It only means what you make it mean, so you're making it all up anyway. And there's a great freedom in that. If you are making it up, whether you're making the whole thing up or just a little nuance of it, then you are free to make it up a different way. Is anybody hot in here but me? No. And it's just me. So one of the things that I had as a bonding moment or experience with my sister, Margaret, was the ain't it awfuls. Wasn't it awful? Wasn't it terrible to grow up with not enough food? Wasn't it terrible to grow up in an alcoholic family? Wasn't it terrible to grow up in an environment where being locked out was child rearing, or being taken to the dump and dropped off on Saturday morning while my father went out drinking, and then whenever he decided to wander back and pick his kids up at the end of the day, that was called Saturday. And in hindsight, didn't that scar us? You know, wasn't it just insurmountable odds that we have overcome? And we would get together, we would talk about that. And then one day, I don't know if I was in Oregon or I came down to Miami or something, but I remember sitting on the front steps of our family home and wanting to have this conversation, because this is how we bonded. We bonded because we were two wounded, refugees from the same family household. And I remember I looked at you and started to have that, and you looked at me astonished and said, I don't know what you're talking about. I had a wonderful childhood. And you'd think that I would have been happy for her, understanding completely what she had done. And instead I was kind of ticked off that I had lost that woundology, as Carolyn Mace calls it, that ability to connect emotionally over sharing the same wounds. But through that, you gave me a doorway to completely shift how I saw my childhood. And I want to ask you to come up and just share what all of that was about with you. This is my blood sister, Margaret.
I'm your older sister. So we did have a different childhood. But the thing is that we would get together for holidays, and we look at each other and say, how did we get in this family because other people, and we'd reminisce, about growing up in that neighborhood and the things that happened. But then once I got into science of mind and realized you could change your past, you can definitely change your future, but you can also go back and change your past. And the first step is just by realizing that it is possible. And I would start making up situations that I wanted to experience as a child. I wanted that birthday party. I wanted that pony. I wanted that birthday cake. I wanted the pretty dresses. And so I would do that. And then Barbara and I would get together again, and the conversation would start, and I'd say, wait, I don't want to go back down that road, that dark and dreary, dingy road. No, I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I had a wonderful childhood, and that's my story now. I had a wonderful childhood because I gave that to myself by putting in the memories that I want to remember. And it minimalizes the ones that I don't want to remember. It really works.
So how has that changed your life?
Well, I feel better about myself. I don't get depressed. I don't get depressed about thinking about my childhood, Your whole life is the way you make it. You're the writer of your script. You don't like the script? Change it. Just change your script. Past, present, and future. That's it.
So I know that one thing that happened was that you started picking better people to be in relationship with.
Yes.
And that comes from self-worth. The people that we choose to be in relationship with, the people that we attract into our life and think are a good idea, are simply a reflection of our vibration and our experience of who we are. It's the law of attraction, bringing them in. So what I want to talk about tonight is this idea of being able to go back in our own mentalities and review some of the things that we hold as sacred cows. Because we may be holding on to this experience that we can call traumatic and dramatic and terrible. And if you talk to most people on the planet, they would agree with you because there's factual representation to back up that story. But my question is, what good is that doing to you? If you grew up in extreme poverty and you have been holding on to this belief system that says, I am a poor person, and you've acted out poverty all through your life, what good does holding on to that story do for you today? You're not in that situation anymore, so it's not like you can go back there and change it. So you might as well go back in your mind and change what happened. The interesting thing is that your subjective mind does not know what day it is. Think about that. Your subjective mind doesn't know if it's 2014 or if it's 1964. It just doesn't know. And so whatever you tell it, it simply has to take. And if you start telling yourself that whatever that story was either didn't happen or happened in a different way or happened for a different reason, any of those will work. Then if you start telling yourself that, your subjective has to take that as the God's honest truth. That's why affirmations work. If you're being thrown out of your house because you haven't made your mortgage payment, foreclosure's coming, and you start doing affirmations that you've got more than enough money and that all your bills are paid, and money shows up in some, in hindsight, very logical way, but from the point you were at, a seemingly impossible way, that's why that works. Because your subjective mind takes whatever is told it, forgets about the outer factual experiences, the conditions of your life, and then creates from that subjective point of view. That's also why, if you have a hidden belief that says there's no way life is going to get better, and you go, life is wonderful, and nothing happens, it's because that subjective belief is still operating, and you're going to have to just do it more and more and more until you clean that up. Sometimes people say, well, I did one affirmation and the lottery didn't come through. What's up with that? It's going to take more than one affirmation because you have the whole subjective consciousness going on. So we're talking about the art of shifting consciousness. And what I want to talk about is shifting subjective consciousness tonight.
Yeah.
So pardon me?
Yay.
Yay. So we have some different ways of doing it. One is it just flat out didn't happen. You had a wonderful childhood. Your parents were loving and kind. Your grandparents lived with you. It was the Waltons every night. Everybody said good night to everybody. Everybody cared about everybody. There were big family dinners and dogs and freedom and all of that. And that's what your childhood was. Or perhaps that memory that you have really didn't happen the way you think it did. Perhaps you were a little tyrant, a little hellion. Perhaps you were a very difficult child because you were going for freedom and you weren't going to let yourself be locked in those diapers or stay in that bed or be kept behind that baby gate or go to school or whatever it was. You weren't going to go there, and so naturally the people around you got frustrated, and perhaps they took that frustration out in a way that didn't feel good, but frankly that was their point. And perhaps if you were in the parental role with a child like you might do the same thing. So it's more it wasn't so terrible, let everybody off the hook. You were a complete player in that scenario, whatever it was. I would never want to have to raise me. I was an awful child. In terms of good children, bad children, I was a bad child. You know, I just didn't want to hear it. I knew who I was. I knew what I wanted. I was strong enough and stubborn enough to just go for it, and I didn't care what the repercussions were. I just didn't care. I was going to go for it. And so I didn't drive my father to drink. He drank long before I came along, but I probably helped keep him drinking long after he said he had stopped. Yes, Jane.
Just the other day, there's a little book that's been hanging around on my bureau. It said JWT Travels, and that's my mother's initials, JWT. And I have always just dreaded my mother and really disliked her, and like she's hardly human to me. But the thing of it is that I tried to read it one time, and the funny thing is, I read the first page and then it looked like it was blank, the whole rest of the book. So the other day, I picked it up again and I read, and it wasn't blank. That was my perception, but it was filled with writing right up to the end.
About your mother?
Yeah, my mother wrote it.
Ah, good. So you were able to accept a different view on your mother.
Yes.
Good for you, good for you. So the third thing to do with these memories, the first one is, it didn't happen, I had a wonderful childhood, I had a pony. I had, 5 dogs and they all got to sleep in the bed with me. I got to eat cookies all day long with chocolate milk and not have to do anything I didn't want to do, and my life was great. The second one is, wow, I can see how I did that, how I participated in that, how I was a player in that. And maybe it didn't happen the way I've told myself it happened. Maybe my story was just to garner people feeling sorry for me and to feel sorry for myself so that I could play small instead of have to be the powerful being that I am. Anybody doing that one? Yeah. So then the third one, Edwene Gaines taught me, and she's going to be here on January 3rd, and I remember when she told this story how amazed I was that anybody could go there. And I met her when I was in my 20s. So she told a story one day in one of her workshops about having been sexually abused in the crib. In the crib. And she did a lot of rebirthing and things like that. So she moved into a memory of being sexually abused in the crib. Now we know that that memory may or may not be true. But in that moment it was very true for her. And what she did is she took that and she said, let me see if I can wrap my head around this from a spiritual perspective. That here I am with someone that I love very much and who loves me. And I'm choosing to incarnate in planet Earth, and I want to learn about power. That's what she's all about. She stands up and says, I am God's woman of power. That is her shtick, is power. I wanted to come in and learn about power. So I had this being that I danced through lifetimes with who said, I will come and help you learn about power. And so that person came in as her father, and she came in as the daughter, and what she learned was what it felt like to not have any power. And she said that has helped her all through her life, because she will never use power over anyone, because she knows what that feels like, and that is so completely against her purpose in life. So what we can do is we can take what happens, like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, talking about being a prisoner in Auschwitz. You can take that experience and you can find a higher thought process about it. And some people say, oh, Barbara, you're just justifying and rationalizing and playing mind games. Yes, we are. About everything that ever happens, We are justifying, rationalizing, and playing mind games. No matter what is going on, that's what we're doing. So if we're making it all up anyway, let's look at some of the things that are still stumbling blocks in our life and see what we can do to reframe those, to come up with a different scenario, to shift our consciousness about that. Instead of, I was a helpless victim, this should never happen to anybody, nobody deserves to be treated like that, and I'm gonna have a chip on my shoulder and be mad my whole life, and I'm gonna try to take it out on anybody that remotely reminds me of that situation. A lot of people are in marriages that way. They're still taking their childhood out on their partners. So instead of doing that, which isn't lifting us into a higher consciousness, it's not transforming the world, it's not creating health and wholeness and joy and love and prosperity, all it's doing is keeping us stuck and going round and round and round. Instead of doing that, let's do something different. And in that doing of something different, we've got 3 choices, and if you come up with another one, let me know what it is. One is, that just didn't happen. I am going to tell myself that I had a wonderful childhood. And it may or may not have details. But I'll tell you, the person that you are today has no resemblance to the person that you used to be. The choices that that person made, the life that that person lived, has nothing to do with you today. And that's all about telling yourself, I had a great time. I had a wonderful childhood. I was deeply loved. Or, maybe that didn't happen exactly the way that I thought. Maybe over the years, every time that I've told that story, I've embellished it just a little bit. Just a little bit, I've made it a little worse, and a little worse, and a little worse, because I'm digging for that, oh, how could that happen? How can you even be here? How did you not kill yourself? You are amazing. Or, you can look at it from a higher perspective. I don't know, maybe we were jumping into planet Earth, baby boomers, grabbing a body, and they said, all the good families are taken. Here, you want this practicing alcoholic, religious, fanatic, totally suppressed, codependent, and 5th child of this worn out woman's body. You want that? And going, yeah, I just want to go. Give me a ticket, I'm in. I just want to go. I mean, maybe there is that in us that knew exactly what we were getting into, found great value in that, and still have the opportunity to use that to lift ourselves up. And I'll give you, some people bit off more than they could chew. Some people were very optimistic prior to incarnating on planet Earth. And some people that didn't work for them. I think that's where suicides come in, is that they just thought they could handle more than they could, and so they're going to go and get in line and do it again, because I don't think you really go anywhere. I think you incarnate on planet Earth until you're done incarnating on planet Earth, and then you go do something else. But I think there is an eternal process of manifesting into form and going back out, and manifesting into form and going back out, whatever that form looks like, I don't know. But there have been experiences I've had on this planet that I have known I was there before. Just flat out knew I was there before. I took a trip to Israel when I was in my late 20s. I was the minister in Miami. And people wanted to go to Israel, and I think that started the ruining me for international travel. Israel is a military state, whether they call it that or not. There is no freedom. You can't go for a walk outside of the hotel. You are assigned an armed guard, and you will stay with your group, and you will be with someone with a gun, because you could get shot if you don't. So there's a lot of motivation. But after we went to Israel, there was a trip to Egypt, and there was a woman who got off the plane and in Egypt and went to the pyramids and started reading the hieroglyphics. She had never read hieroglyphics before in her life. And it was not, oh wow, look at me, it scared the pants off of her. But she knew what it said, and she was correct in the translation. And that has to be, in my opinion, some kind of a past life experience. believe it is. Now, Science of Mind doesn't teach past lives, and Ernest Holmes says that he doesn't believe in past life, but his reasoning is faulty because he said he doesn't believe in past lives because no one's ever going to get him in diapers again. So I think that's a valid reason to say you don't believe in past lives. So maybe some of us were very optimistic in our choice of experiences. And can you just get yourself, you're outside of time and space, you're not in a body, you're just in that love and joy and power, and you want to grow and you want to learn about the bigness of all of life, so you jump into something really small so that you can come out through it. And sometimes I'm sure we're in the middle of those growing situations and thinking, what was I thinking? What was I out of my mind to think that this was an appropriate way to have a childhood? That this was a good idea to go through adolescence? That I should, have a child at this age? Was I out of my mind to do that? And yet, if we can garner the good from that, we can take that today. It's twofold benefit. One is to remove the block that we're still holding on a subjective level that says this bad thing happened to me, I really am helpless, things can come out of the blue, I'll never, triumph over whatever because of whatever, that block that continues to manifest, and we can move into gaining the spiritual growth from that experience. That's why during the class on forgiveness, I wanted us to go to all the way, not from you dirty, rotten SOB, I'm going to forgive you, you terrible, horrible person, I hope you burn in hell, I'm going to forgive you, to, we want to go all the way to thank you. Thank you for being willing to dance this cosmic dance with me. Thank you for the opportunities that you gave me for me to grow into the being that I am today. Thank you for your willingness, because, for people to be really awful, they have to agree to go into a very dense consciousness. And I think anybody who's going to incarnate for me to be just awful has given up a lot. They've given up their joy and their love, and in order to play that role of being just so bitter and so angry and so closed off that they will hurt someone. So really, thank you for being willing to incarnate in such misery yourself that you could help me break through. Now, how does that shift? How does that feel as a shift for you? Where are you with this process? Barbara.
I totally agree with all this. A few years ago, I had this friendship that had turned toxic, and we parted ways, and I felt a lot of relief and freedom and peace. And then when I had some time, I had perspective that, wow, she came here to teach me to trust myself, because my biggest fear in breaking the friendship is we have mutual friends, and my fear was I'm going to be judged, people aren't going to understand, I'm going to be ostracized from the group we're in, and I was completely on my own. I didn't have anybody else doing that with me. And so I realized the learning for me was to learn to do it anyway and to trust myself and being true to myself regardless what other people thought of me. And we actually had a conversation that we had agreed on later on, that we thought we had a soul contract for this.
Right.
And so I'm still grateful to her for that. And then, that's one of the things I know I came to learn, believe I came to learn, and she was a wonderful catalyst for that.
Right.
So yeah, so now when I think of her, I feel no negativity, I just feel gratitude.
You feel gratitude.
Yeah.
And what was it that Amy Steinberg said in the middle of her song yesterday? That which you judge, you become. That was worth admission right there. That which you judge, you become. So you were able to move into gratitude with this person, and how freeing is that? And whether or not you believe in soul contracts, Carolyn Mays, any of that, I don't care. We are creating our reality right here and right now on a subjective and conscious level. Most of it is subjective. So if we've got a number that we have run on ourselves, and everybody would sit still long enough for us to tell them our story, if we have a number that we have been running that does not lift us, but that takes us down, holds us down, keeps us small, then that isn't helping. So whether or not you believe that someone came in a pre-jumping into, and I just like the dramatics of it, you know, jumping into a body and I'll take that one and thank you for screwing over me in this life. I mean, I must have had a whole bunch of men lined up to be incarnate with me. You'll be the father, you'll be the first husband, you'll be the business partner, you'll be the second husband, you'll be the... That was all me. So if I'm creating that reality, then I need to figure out some way to get it to move. And it doesn't have to move a lot. Have you ever tried to loosen something that's really tight? All it has to do is start to move and you know you're good. Once you get it to move a little bit, you know that you can loosen it. But until it moves, you don't know if it'll ever loosen. And so all you have to do is move your awareness, your idea of it a little bit, and things will start to shift in how you see yourself. Either tell yourself you had a wonderful childhood, you had a pony, you had all the things that you would look at now as good things, or there was something that you contributed to this. You are not completely victimized by this experience. There was something that you did, even if it's that you've taken it and embellished it over the years. It's like the fishing story where the fish goes from this big to this big after you tell the story, and you can even convince yourself that it got bigger and bigger and bigger. It was worse and worse and worse. You know, compared to growing up in Cambodia, I had an ideal childhood. I had a meal a day. It was just the comparison with the neighbors that made me feel less than. Because they had 3 meals a day and they had bacon for breakfast. What is that? What is bacon? Never saw a piece of bacon in the house that I grew up in. So I can make it worse and worse and worse inside of my own head, or I can really go for it and see if there's not a higher truth going on. And since you're making it all up anyway, what might that be? What might that higher truth be? There's there was a post on Facebook that was a member of our center, still is a member of our center, that said, "Bruce, I can't believe it's been 10 years since you died." And I was looking at that going, God, it's been 10 years since Bruce Medcay took care of all of his arrangements, found his father after being estranged all of his life, and drove his motorcycle up to Virginia and met him again, cleaned that up, went down and met with his son and ex-wife in Atlanta and cleaned that up. And it was actually coming back from Atlanta from going down to watching his child in a Christmas play that he was hit head on and flew out of his body and this life. But what came on those Facebook posts were all of the things that his passing triggered. And one thing that I didn't know is that Tim Wagner came to this center for the very first time for Bruce's memorial service. And that's how he walked in the door. So how do I want to look at it? Do I want to look at the little story or the big story? Do I want to look at, oh, this poor man who had the most amazing tattoo of Baba Ganesh on his back? I mean, he would take his shirt off and the whole room would just stop in full 4 color. It was amazing. This man who left in his prime way too young to leave this earth in a drunk driving accident. You know, how much validation do we need to drum up to make this feel like it's a bad thing? But to Tim Wagner, it was his doorway to come into this community. And he had known about this center for years, he'd just never come in. And so it was Bruce's memorial service that brought him in the door. And so I look at that and I look at how do we see ourselves? Can we let go of all of the smallness of our story and really try to find something inside of us that is bigger than any event, bigger than any circumstance, and that lifts us up to our true purpose? And I don't mean creating world peace, I mean our true purpose of being a magnificent spiritual being on planet Earth that we are. So we have 3 ways of doing that. I want to explore it a little bit more after the break and actually have us find some things and do some shifting on them, and then give you some homework to do during the week. Are there any questions or comments about this before we break? Jane?
That book, that travelogue book from my mother, gave me a totally different vision of her.
Right.
And it just blew my mind.
Right.
For the first time in my life that I can remember, I have an actual mother
Good,
that I
good.
knew. So,
One of the things that I got from my mom living up here is that she should never have had children. I mean, she just wasn't cut out to have children. She would have been a very happy person without any kids.
Who would be standing there?
That's right.
I would have come in somewhere else. Did you have your hand up, David? David, and then Patty.
I was just gonna point out, you mentioned about bacon, and I was thinking how different perceptions can be from different people. My mother grew up in a farm, very poor, that raised pigs. When they had nothing else, they had all the pigs and pork you could ever eat. So,
She was sick of bacon.
okay.
Right, right. Patty.
I guess my question is, to ask before the break, is if you've done all the big stuff, how do you get to the little stuff?
Just pick something.
Yeah.
We'll go through a process and you'll just pick something. It doesn't matter what you use to get the nut or the screw to turn. It doesn't matter whether you hit it, whether you heat it, whether you squirt it. Doesn't matter as long as you get it to turn. So it doesn't matter what you use to shift consciousness. Oh, come on, you people have worked on cars, lawnmowers, bicycles. It doesn't, jar lids, it doesn't matter what you do to shift consciousness, just shift. If you're gonna shift on the pair of shoes you have on, that's a good shift. If you're gonna shift on the water in your cup, that's a good shift. It's like when we talk about finding something to do a rampage of appreciation on. It doesn't matter what you're picking, it's the energy that you're generating, it's the shift. Wilma.
I can relate to what David said because somebody made the comment not long ago about me growing up poor as a church mouse. I said, absolutely, we had steak every day, we had pork every day, we had eggs every day. I mean, you can go on and on and on when you grow up on a farm.
Right, right. And I think it has to do with our comparison. If everybody is at the same level, even if everyone's hungry, everyone is together. And it's when we're different that we start internalizing those judgments. What are you shaking your head
I
no
said
about?
I never went hungry.
Yeah, you never went hungry. Anything else? Great, let's take a break and when we come back, we'll play. Culture that supports us in our victimization. And even though the Olympics come around and we all cheer for that person who triumphs over the odds, we live in a culture that supports us in our victimization. So it is scary to look at some of that stuff and change it. I want to go over your 3 choices to make sure you get it. The first choice is it didn't happen, something else happened. If you can wrap your head around that, that's great. If you can't, don't worry about it. The second choice is to take some personal responsibility for what happened. Sometimes I ask people, did you have any sense before you got married that this was not a good idea? And inevitably they will say yes. I've even asked people, did you have anything, any intuition at all that told you not to go home that way? And they say, yes, I knew I shouldn't go that way. So there is that within us that we bring into our situation. It's not blame, but it's take some responsibility for what happened, or consider that it didn't happen the way you thought it happened, that you've been fabricating it, feeding it, milking it, to try to get some kind of neurotic feeling sorry for yourself or other people feeling bad for you, that kind of thing. Just take some responsibility for what you've done with it or not done with it, like gotten over it. But I don't want to go there right now. I did a great talk once called Suck It Up, Cupcake. And the third one is try to lift yourself up into a higher realization that there was some good in there. And look for it, whatever it is. You know, and again, I don't want to foster this idea of no pain, no gain, but if you already had the pain, you might as well get some gain from it, instead of just throwing it all out. So you have three choices. Either it didn't happen, something else happened, or I've been participating in this. Either I participated in the moment in a way I can see, or I can see how I've used it to define myself, to make things easier for me. Oh, don't expect too much, I'm a wounded person, that kind of thing. Or to lift yourself up into a higher awareness of what the purpose of all of that was. Not one thing is better than the other. It's just about beginning to shift, to beginning to move from this is the way that it was, and that means that this is who I am, to maybe that wasn't the way that it was, and that means maybe I can be somebody different. And that's the point. Okay? So you're going to want a piece of paper, maybe, if you're going to want to write something down. You don't have to. Again, this is some scary stuff for some people. And if you write it down, yes, you can burn it. No one has to look at it. I'm not going to ask you to read it or anything like that. Or you can just simply not write it down. Whatever you want to do is fine. Great. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And take a deep breath. And let it out. And take another deep breath. And let it out. And before we go anywhere, I want to just establish the idea that we are all safe. It is 2014, December 15th, and all is well. We are safe, our lives are working, and everything is fine. But we're going to allow ourselves to relax into this experience of safety. And you may want to just take some attention and scan through your physical body. Maybe you came in with tense shoulders. Everything's okay. You can relax. It's okay. Let it go. You may have come in with a knot in your neck. You can just let that go and relax. Your back may be a little stiff. Well, you can just let that go. Everything's fine. You can relax. You can let your weight be held up by the chair. It's okay. The chair loves to hold your weight. You can let it go. And you can let the chair be held up by the floor. And you can let the floor be held up by the earth. So feel this sense of support, surrounded in safety, and know that it's okay to relax. It's okay to let go. And in that state of relaxation, of comfort, of letting go, I want to ask you to simply allow something to bubble up into your awareness, something that has been a stumbling block for you, something that has been a story that has held you back, that has kept you small. I don't care about the details of the story. Just as you let the chair hold you up, you let that idea bubble up. It may be a big thing, it may be a small thing, it doesn't matter. It's all one thing. And all you need is one thing. You don't need a whole list. Just one thing. And it doesn't matter how long ago it was or how old you were. Just let the awareness of whatever that story is to come up. Remember, you're safe. as well. And so take that idea of the story and bring yourself back a little bit into this room, being aware of the people around you, the table in front of you, the chair, the floor, the lights. If you want to write down whatever that story was about, not in narrative detail, just maybe 1 or 2 words. It's okay for you to write it down. This would be a good time to do that. And if you're not going to write it down, just go ahead and keep your eyes closed. And you brought that story back with you into December 15th, 2014. You're back in present time. And after you've written it down, let yourself relax again in the chair. Let the chair hold you up. It is its purpose in life. And let any tension go that you might have picked up by writing something, focusing back in time and space. Let it go. Just let it go. And now is your time to direct, to write, to have any idea of what you might have wanted that experience to be. We start off with the first idea that says it just didn't happen. Whether it is we had a wonderful childhood, or that vacation was the best vacation ever. That brother was so loving and supportive to me. Whatever it is, just change it to whatever it is you want it to be. It doesn't matter whether it has factual support, just change it. Give yourself a pony. Give yourself a grandmother. Give yourself a cookie. Be the captain of the team. Whatever it is, just make it different. And let yourself sit with how good that feels. You weren't picked last, you were picked first. You didn't have to walk, you had a car. You weren't poor, you were rich. You were loved, you were supported, you were encouraged. Whatever that story is, let it come into form. Get a sense of it, feel it, open to it, embrace it. And if you want to, those of you who want to write that down, come back into the room and just take a minute. Don't come out too much, but just jot down some of the ideas of that new story. Our outside voice was welcomed inside. And let yourself feel good about it. Embrace it. Feel how much better it feels to have this reality than the other one. Yeah. And when you're done writing, just let yourself relax again. You may just want to scan your body, starting at the top of your head and letting your awareness go down to your neck and your back and your shoulders and your arms, your torso, and your hips and your thighs and your knees and your legs and your feet, and just relax. Everything is fine. Let the chair hold you up. And so we're going to pick up that old story again and consider that maybe we had something to do with that. Perhaps we were a player in that. And instead of being a victim, we were a volunteer. Perhaps we have even stretched the story through the years to make it more than it was. And just allow yourself to sit with that, because these are some tough questions. How did I contribute to that? And you may get an answer, you may not. There may not be an answer for you, it's okay. Have I made it bigger than it was? And just let whatever comes up, come up. You don't have to go digging or searching. If it's there, it's there. And then sit with that for a minute. If there is responsibility to be taken, it feels good to take it. And if there is a higher level of honesty to be had, it feels good to have it. So feel that feeling. Embrace it. Step into it. No blame. And then let your awareness come back into this room. And if you choose to write something down about that second option, then just write yourself some notes. Doesn't have to be a narrative, just some notes. This is not for anyone to see but you. And when you're done writing, let yourself relax again, knowing that you are safe, that all is well. This is a wonderful process of revealing you to you. Scan your body. Let go, let the chair hold you up, and relax. And let this story come up again, this event. Whatever it was, no judgment, it just was. And then see if there's not some part of you, you can call it a higher self, a wise person. See if there's not some part of you that has a different idea of what happened, that can see the value and the blessing of that experience. And allow that awareness to bubble up into your conscious awareness. Something entirely different was happening. Something greater was going on. And see how that feels. If you don't have that, it's okay. It's okay. But if something comes up, try it on. See how it feels. See if it lifts you. embrace it, accept it. And then let your awareness come back into your body, sitting in the chair at the table. Let your awareness be aware of the air around your body, the floor under your feet, the table in front of you or under your hands. And as your awareness comes back into your body, if you want to, you can write down some notes about what that third option was, that there was something greater going on. And for those who are not writing, bring your attention back to your body. Notice the space around you. There are people around you. You're in a room. There's a floor beneath your feet. You're sitting on a chair. Let your awareness come back into your body. And whenever you're ready, it's okay to open your eyes. Okay to open your eyes back into your body. Great. Since this was a group process, I just want everyone to look at the wall over there. Look at the wall over there. And you see that one wall is closer than the other. Everybody's got that spatial. Everybody look at the floor, and if anyone has waves in the floor, raise your hand. Is your floor wavy? Okay. Dan, you're close enough. Touch the wall. And Kathy, just touch the plastic table. And be aware of the solidness of the table and the wall. Be aware of the coolness. Don't close your eyes. I want your eyes open. I want you back. So be aware of the coolness of the table and the coolness and the solidness of the wall. You feel that? You feel that? Great. And now look at that wall and see how far away it is from you. And then look at that wall and see how it's a different distance. You have that?
Yeah.
Now look at the floor and tell me if it's still wavy.
I think it might actually be wavy.
I'm talking about real waves. Kathy,
Floating.
get up and go touch the wall. Took you out of your bodies. Yeah, go touch the wall with both hands. Feel the solidness. It's called sheetrock. It's made out of rock. Feel the solidness of that wall. Feel it going all the way down into the earth as solid and strong. You feel that? Let that solidness come into your body through your hands and feel how your body is solid. You get that?
Yeah.
Okay, look at the floor. Does it look like the ocean? You're back. You back, Dan?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I did something to you, and letting you go out into the world and drive a car like that would be irresponsible on my part. So I always make sure that you're back before we go on. Did you get anything from the 3 choices? Did anybody have at least one response to the 3 choices?
Could you run over the all three choices?
Run over them. I can repeat them. The first one is, it didn't happen. Something else happened. I won't talk to you about that other childhood. I've chosen another one. I had a wonderful childhood. That is, it didn't happen, something else happened. The second one is, I participated in that somehow. I was an awful kid. I was rebellious, I fought, I didn't do what I was asked to do just on general principles, just to pick a fight. I was angry, I was hostile, I was an awful kid. And I won't go any farther with, well, if they had only nurtured me, gave me a little support, a little time, maybe just a little food, I wouldn't have been that blood sugar thing going on. I'm not going there. I was an awful kid. I did that. I did that. And I milked it. I milked it with every therapist. I milked it with every counselor. I milked it with every person that I could tell my story to. So that's the second one. How did I participate in that experience? And did I have an investment in either keeping it or growing it? That's the second one. You got that? The third one is take it up a notch. Look at it from a spiritual perspective. There's a blessing in everything. So see if you can find the blessing. You got it, Jane?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. So I told you you weren't going to have to share. You don't, but does anybody want to share? Barbara.
So I'll just start with the original story. My parent, it's not a huge thing, but anyway, my parents. The story was I wasn't heard or accepted for expressing feelings that were negative or unacceptable with my Catholic parents. So I was shut down. My dad would slap my arm at the dinner table if I had a scowl on my face. So I felt not heard, not acknowledged, and invisible, and so on. So the first one I did was changing the story. So in the new story, I was fully heard and listened to. My parents were very present. I felt I could say anything, and they held space for me to do so. I felt important, heard, empowered, visible, wise, validated, valuable, loved. My parents looked at me in awe, wowed by my intuitive wisdom. They said, trust your feelings, you're very wise. You're perfect just the way you are. We love you unconditionally. You can tell us anything. Number 2, my part in it, I was disrespectful and had a bit of a hateful attitude. My energy was angry. I was sarcastic, and I was not being loving or present with them. And then number 3, I chose this experience to know what it felt like to feel invisible, unacknowledged, unacceptable for certain feelings, so that I could give others the gift I wanted at that time, which is to be present with people, listening, letting them express without judgment, and loving people unconditionally in that space and holding a safe space for people. So that was the gift that I think I was meant to have.
How do you feel?
Good, I feel great. Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Good, this is good, good.
Anybody?
I know I'm gonna do that one day, and somebody's gonna be in there. Who else? Hope it's a guy. David, is that working? Great, thanks, David.
I have one more. The story is that a man broke into my window while I was sleeping, and number 1 was to do a new story. I was a young girl, I was 8. The new story is lovely and totally made up and hard for me to, like, I just didn't feel like that one would work. Number 2, I didn't even write anything because I couldn't figure out what my role would be. And number 3, in that sort of meditative place that we were in, I just asked my higher self what was the purpose of that, what was it to teach me, because I'm having a hard time finding that, besides just choosing maybe Edwin Gaines saying because I wanted to be powerful, and So I came up with what popped in my head was compassion, which confused me. Because I don't know if that's supposed to be compassion towards him or all, I just don't understand it.
Just take the compassion, you don't have to understand it. How do you feel right now?
Crap.
Crappy, okay, because you're remembering something that was painful. And you couldn't go to, it didn't happen at all, or you made up something, but you're saying that's bogus.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, but it's not true. I mean, my story was maybe a little humorous.
What was do you want to share what your story was?
The made up one?
Yeah.
Okay, my mom and dad were always home protecting me. They were always right there whenever I needed them. Our neighborhood was safe and friendly. My house had a security guard who stood guard with a vicious dog who made sure we were safe and that no one ever wished me or my house or family harm.
Wonderful. How does that feel?
It feels ridiculous.
Yes.
No, I'm just being honest.
Well, you're being reactive, but yes. So if it didn't feel ridiculous, how might it feel?
Blissful.
Blissful. So do you think that you might be willing to go through some ridiculousness to see if you can get a glimpse at blissful?
Sure.
I would encourage you to do that. I know someone who put a samurai warrior at her foot of her bed so that she could sleep in a house alone. And it worked. And so I know that it feels ridiculous, but I also know that your subjective mind doesn't know that that didn't happen. And given the choice of what it is that's going into your awareness, the ridiculous one would serve you better than the one that actually happened when you were 8. I just commend your courage. And you already had the pain, so let's try to get some gain from it. Okay? Thank you, Sarah. Elaine?
This was, the whole thing was a wonderful aha moment. There's, one thing that happened when I was 8 years old, my grandmother died, and my mother went off and left me at the cemetery. But what a wonderful way to learn early in life how to become self-sufficient, take care of myself when the occasion arose that I have to. And to realize that whatever happens, that there is a way.
Right, right.
There are several other things, the same type thing, but it's the same basic learning experience of self-sufficiency.
Mhm. Great. How do you feel?
A heck of a lot lighter. I've held this all my life, it's just been, why did my mother be angry? There I am.
Well, anybody in their right mind would say how terrible that was,
Yeah.
except that doesn't help you.
Right, so to let go of that, it is fantastic, wonderful.
Great, good. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Margaret?
Well, what came up for me was, as a child, I had decided by myself that I must be useful so they don't get rid of me. Like I had to earn my place in the house. And I realized that I had a big part in that because I was always getting into other people's business, trying to fix everything, trying to smooth everything over. And what I now know is that I am lovingly wanted and accepted for being myself, and I take care of myself and I allow others to take care of their own self, and I respect their process.
I was so disappointed when you did that.
Yeah, sorry.
What do you mean you're not gonna go get me a cup of coffee?
So nice.
But how do you feel?
Wonderful.
Yeah, good. Who else? Jane and then Kathy, okay.
What I did was wipe out my existence and my mother's existence when I was little. to me that there was no connection between us, and I had no idea who she was, and no idea who I was. And so now, I feel that because of that journal, and because of the similarity between the young woman in the journal that I found and my own self, I thought, oh my God, I did have a mother, and really there was some connection between us, you know, and not a mother-daughter kind of a connection, but so at least there was something going on. So basically, I decided that I was a loved child, and that my parents had a child, they got a child, and that was a blessing.
Good.
Yeah, so anyway, so that's what,
And
and
how-
for who, I don't know.
How do you feel?
So I feel much better because I have an actual mother, and I don't have to and I don't have to not exist anymore.
Good for you. Good for you. Thank you,
So I'm
Jane.
thrilled. Okay.
Thank you, David.
It was a little strange. It wasn't one experience. Each time you did something, brought up something totally different. And it's kind of blown my mind because I didn't even know that this was there that came up. And my mom was a great mom, and she was like, everybody came before her, she did everything for everybody else, and I don't remember her ever doing anything for herself, you know? Even down to bathrooms, we had one bathroom, she always took the bath last, you know? Never did anything for herself. And it kind of came up that I wasn't good enough, or I didn't deserve things, and the last one that we did, I wrote down that my mom always came last. She did everything, and she didn't really deserve anything. And I'm like, wow, that's like my self-worth, because I'm kind of taking after what she did and doing everything for everybody. And now I'm changing it into I'm worthy, and I'm claiming my worthiness. So that's kind of cool. Big,
Yay.
huge.
How do you feel?
I feel awesome.
Great, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Does anyone else want to share? Michael and then Patty.
Well, mine was a recent one, it was only a couple of years ago, but when it popped into my mind, my first thought was, oh, I'm doing this wrong. But that's what that whole thing was about, not doing good enough, right enough, enoughness, you know? And so I saw this situation where I thought I acted like an idiot from my family. And I saw it different. Oh, we had fun, and we were laughing about everything. And then when you said something about try that on and see how it feels, I felt like a jacket on me, and it just like fell off. And it just, this lightness came over me, and it was like, let me go. It was just that one situation was representative of just the way I feel in general.
So how do you feel right now?
Lighter.
Wonderful. Thank you. Patty.
I feel really fortunate that I have very few childhood memories, specific, but I have all of this crud. And so I chose a couple of words to describe that crud. And since I didn't have any memory that I had to work out, I could just make it up. And so taking that idea, I wrote some things about my family and how it was when I was growing up. And I found that to be a very interesting process to just make up my childhood instead of saying I don't remember, just make up something. And it was just really different. And it made me feel different, but it also changed the way I feel about my family members, the ones that there's a difference if I spend some time with this new story, there's a lot of difference in the way that energy is between us and my own energy field. I don't know what's going on with them, but, you know, but how that feels different. And I like that, I can have a happy childhood.
Yeah.
And a safe childhood.
We could have a happy childhood. We could have had a happy childhood if we have it today. Yeah. And how do you feel?
Relaxed. Not like I have to guard it so much.
Good, good, good.
That changes emotion.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to share? So that was a very brief process. I intentionally did not take you deep, although Dan and Kathy had trouble coming back.
Here they are, though.
Here they are, though. And if you would like to, during the week, explore those, especially one that has a feeling to it, especially one that really clicked. You know, don't try to find the one that didn't work, except for Sarah, in that I want you to consider being ridiculous to get a sense of bliss. Check yourself out, give yourself some time. Let yourself go with it. You know, if you connected with a higher part of you or a wise part of you or something like that, connect with that again. And you know, you can even do a little psychodrama where you ask that part of you to tell you more about that situation, tell you more about anything. It's all inside of you, and sometimes it's easier for people to project it out a little bit into someone else, kind of, but it's really you, and then have that part of you tell you what it is you're looking for. Or if you're making it up, I can have a happy childhood. So just go for it. You know, I used to love to watch the Waltons, and I would just take that in. It's like, that's a possibility of existence. That, da-da-da-da-da-da. I would just go to Happy Land, and I'm sure there's some part of my subconscious that was taking that in, so go for it.
You found that modern book there.
Really?
Really?
And if there's a part of you that is looking at what did I do? I married the guy, come on. I married the guy and then I feel all trapped. I'm not trapped. It's like when John said, when he says I have to, and I'm constantly correcting him, you get to. I'm doing that for me. Nobody's holding a gun to our heads. We don't have to anything. We don't have to stay. We didn't have to stay, we chose to do that. Oh, it was for the good of the kids. If you asked the kids, they would have said, we knew that marriage was over long ago. We wish you guys would have just acknowledged it, moved on, and we would have been better off. Oh, we did it for the children. You know, we were miserable and we fought with each other and hated each other for our children, so we could totally screw them up. But to take a good look at yourself and see what did you do. And just out of honesty, I milked my stories. I came up with such good renditions of my story that I remember once I had a therapist that was in awe of me. She actually looked at me once and said, you have the indomitable human spirit, that you were able to go through all of that. And I do truly look at all of us and say it's not how screwed up we are, it's how sane we are that impresses me. But to look at ourselves and say, what did I do in that? You know, how did we pick the fight? And in my decades of working with women and the whole abused wife syndrome, which can be physical, mental, emotional, at what point do you pick the fight? At what point do you pick the fight and then get beaten up physically, mentally, or emotionally, and then cry foul? So when we can see that, wow, picked the fight. Maybe I shouldn't pick the fight anymore if I don't want to experience that. How do I still pick a fight? How do I still pick a fight? Today's a happy day. The hell it is. Don't tell me what kind of a day I'm gonna have. I'm gonna pick a fight with you. How do I still pick a fight? So look at yourself, give yourself some time to see whether or not you're embellishing, whether or not you're participating. And then look at that third one, which I think has great potential. And I don't want to give a hierarchy because I had a wonderful childhood, transformed you and your future, which you are now in the harvest of. So none of these are bigger or better than the other, but this idea that there is a higher spiritual truth going on at any given moment for whatever is happening starts with you, and then you can see it in the world. So I would encourage you to spend some time on this, and this is therapy in a nutshell, I know, but however we can shift our consciousness for the way that we see ourselves and to lift us up from a helpless, hopeless victim into a powerful, creative, spiritual being, however we can do that is a good thing. And even if we're just loosening the knot a little bit, once we get it to move, the possibility that there might be bliss somewhere. Once we get it to move a little bit, then the future moves are pretty guaranteed. I mean, I've never had a screw or nut turn a little bit and then never turn again. It's like once it turns, okay, here we go. Even if I have to beat on it with a hammer, you know, I know you're gonna turn, you turned a little bit, you're gonna turn some more, that kind of thing. I digress. Any other comments on tonight's class? Next week is the last class of this 16-week series, is really what it has been. It's been from the beginning of September to right before Christmas. Is there anything that I'm missing? Is there anything that you want to talk about next week? Creative Mind and Success. And before we go into what do you want me to talk about next week, does anybody want the bookstore to order these two books? They are available on our website for a free download. So if you read on a Nook or a tablet or on your computer, you're welcome to download those from our website. But if you want the bookstore to order them, then raise your hand and I'll make sure they get ordered. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I counted you. Okay. 8. My marker. Okay, so we'll make sure that the bookstore gets some. There's a whole mindset around people who read electronically and people who don't. So if you want the book in your hands, we'll get it for you. And if you want it electronically, you can get it right now. David.
Is that Barker or Holmes, author?
Holmes. It was Ernest's first book, 1916. Right. Yes.
I do have something that I'd
Oh,
like at some
Marielle.
point to talk about, yes. I'm Ariel, thank you. I've been struggling with, which is using the story, changing the story, rescripting it, and using affirmations, how that reconciles with integrity of, our honesty that we've talked about.
I don't think we're honest. I don't think our memories are honest at all. I don't think they're right.
But I guess in the past, years ago, when I learned about affirmations, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel honest, and I was all about honesty and speaking the truth and impeccability of our word that we spoke about. And so knowing that I just felt like shit that at that particular moment and affirming something different, I couldn't reconcile at that time. I better understand, I see the efficacy of it, that it works, but
Which truth? If you feel like crap,
right.
What truth is that? Is that divine truth? Is that the absolute truth? Or is that your personal experience and the condition of your life right now, which came from something else? Stinking thinking.
right,
So don't
yeah.
be so attached to this truth. Don't be so attached to that truth. My truth. I don't care about my truth. I don't care about your truth. I care about the truth. The truth is that God is all that there is, Spirit is all that there is, made manifest as you in its entirety right here and right now. And if you want to say that's not true and that's the truth for me and I'm going to be honest, I'll say you're lying. You're not honest, you're lying. If it's anything other than Spirit is in form as me, I am everything, everyone, all power, all glory. If it's anything less than that, it's a lie.
I guess what I have trouble with is saying, using the first option, this didn't happen, I'm just gonna create this whole new story. When you know, there are photographs, there's your family, there's stories, you know, and you really
So
have a
let's-
belief, you're holding a belief, this
You
did
say
happen and I'm
I,
making up a
don't
story.
lay that on me, say I. So in
I,
the world,
I.
in the world of quantum,
I,
in
sure.
the world of quantum physics and realities, every thought that you ever think exists in form. Otherwise, you can have a thought and no form to go with it, and you have an empty spot, an out of balance spot in the universe. It's impossible. In the world of quantum, everything that you can ever imagine exists. So at some level, that reality did exist.
What fantasy?
No, I'm not talking fantasy. At some level, that reality existed. In the world of quantum, it must.
And I agree with you, but then looking at my personal life and saying, the personal life, the story, if you will, and I'm going to change the story of
So,
Amariel.
Amariel, just
and-
don't do the first one. You're defending your limitations. You're defending your position.
But I still have the same issue with using affirmations. I've always been a little uncomfortable. I have always been a
Which
little
truth you want to hang on to?
uncomfortable.
If my body is experiencing the flu, and I am saying I am in perfect health, vibrant health, filled with energy, I breathe deeply the breath of life, there is a reality in which that exists. There is a spiritual truth, a higher truth, that is never changed by the conditions of time and space. And that's what we have to learn to take our attention away from and move into that greater reality. And if you want to hold on to the fact that you don't have the money, that you're sick, that things aren't working out, then the only thing that you will do is take that spiritual power and create that into form and hold on to it. And that's why people don't get it. They said, how can I say something isn't so when it's so? Or how can I say something is so that isn't so, except if you say it long enough, it becomes so. And then the things that are so don't seem to matter that much. Doesn't matter. I can make this disappear. Look, it's gone. I can have my life be any way that I want it to be, as long as I am willing to focus on what I want, regardless of the circumstances. But the position that I focus on is the truth with a capital T. It's the eternal changeless verities of life, that life is light and love and power and peace and beauty and joy, and that never changes no matter what happens. People are killing each other in Australia, it still doesn't change it. It is still right there. There is a spiritual truth that supersedes and transcends any physical condition. And that's the world that I live in. And I don't care about truth with a small t. I don't care about it. I can't care about it.
If I am identifying myself not with a capital T, but the small t, and I just can't go, for whatever reason, to the capital T, does that diminish
I won't go.
or I won't, don't choose to, won't, can't, does that diminish the power of the impeccability of the words that you were talking about in previous class?
You're just holding on to the condition. You're just going to keep the condition forever. You're using your magnificent spiritual power, the power of all creation, showing up in form as you to hold on to the current events of the day. And how you translate that to impeccability is beyond me.
No, I'm saying, does it diminish? Because we talked about impeccability of our word, and that
Of course
if
it
our word,
diminishes it.
if we
It's
really
not
have a belief
real.
system
This
that we're
stuff is not
identifying.
real. The things in life, the circumstances, the conditions, they don't even exist. This isn't real. This stuff isn't real. There is a greater reality, and it's really important that we learn to live in that. Otherwise, this level will rule us. It'll own us. It'll be able to jiggle and we'll get afraid. It'll tell us to jump and we'll jump how high. So I encourage you to go from the small T to the big T. And then the impeccability is, I will only finish I am with that which is eternally true of me. I am light, I am love, I am joy, I am peace, I am power, I am whole, perfect and complete, right here and right now. Nothing can change that. And for me, that's the true impeccability. Not whether or not I bumped your car out in the parking lot, although if you bump a car, please tell the person. Otherwise, you're carrying that around. It's not good or bad, right or wrong, it's not moral. You're just carrying that energy around. You're using your creative energy to hold that in. Let it go. Tell somebody. It's not worth it. Does that make sense?
I absolutely agree with everything you are saying. I think my question is that at those times when I cannot, or other people cannot, but when I cannot go to that capital T truth, and I'm just looking, identifying myself with the story, that my question is, will it then diminish, knowing that I'm identifying not with the larger?
Will it diminish
I?
what?
Will it diminish the power of words to create and manifest
You
experience?
won't diminish it. You'll just diminish yourself with this. You'll just create yourself at the level of the small T. You'll create your problems, your illness, your upset, whatever it is that you're not willing to let go of, and go to the capital T. You will create that over and over and over and over again. Yes, you can never diminish your power. You're all power. But we'll pick this up again next week. I was corrected. It is not Spiritual Living Archives. It is Science of Mind Archives. ScienceOfMindArchives.org. It's a wonderful, wonderful place to spend some time. David.
You know the title of the talk that you and John do with the black and white balloons? About the story, popping balloons. There's a YouTube of that somewhere.
I know, there's a YouTube of that on our website.
I'm just trying
I'm
to
trying to
remember the title
locate it.
to it.
I don't know.
Okay.
Just Google John Waterhouse balloons. It's the balloon talk. So take out what you're gonna give, hold it in your hand.
When does the next time start?
It's gonna start the day after Edwene comes. What is that, the 6th? January 5th.
She speaks on the floor.
She speaks on the 4th. We'll start January 5th.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love to stir it up. You know, I just love to stir it up, because if we just let sleeping dogs lie, they will lie there forever. So let's stir it up. Really, let's take a good look. And the only thing that we can find is the presence of spirit, which is prosperity and abundance in every way. I know that God is the source of all supply. I know that money is God in action. I know that each one of us, right here and right now, lives a rich life. All blessings show up in our life. We do what we want to do. We go where we want to go. We buy what we want to buy. We have what we want to have, because we are in charge of our lives. So we wake up, we stand up, we be the captains of our ship. We determine our destiny, and we give this gift knowing that we set spiritual law in motion. And the only thing that can happen is it multiplies it and gives it back to us. And so we are clear in our giving. We are clear in our prosperity. We are clear in our acceptance of all good things in life. I know that each one of us comes together to the Center for Spiritual Living to make it all that it was ever meant to be. It is a place of peace, a beacon of light, a tower of strength, and a fountain of wisdom that touches the lives of all who call it home. And so it is.